Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call the March 11th Internal Services Committee meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Where I want to sit. Next item is the adoption of the agenda. I'll take a motion. Motion from Commissioner Romano. Support from Commissioner Drolet. All in favor, please vote, or not.
I'm going to find a whole new way to say it.
Other than Drolet or Drolet?
Yeah, something new.
Rolling.
Not here. Item passes 11-0. Next is the approval of the minutes dated February 4th, 2019. Motion by Commissioner Leonetti, support by Commissioner Lucido. Please vote. Motion passes 12-0. Next item is public participation. Anybody from the public wishing to speak, you have 5 minutes. Give us your name and address. Going once. Joan's thinking about it. Going twice. All right, we will close public participation and move on to item 6, appointment interview opportunity for the Community Mental Health Board. There are 4 vacancies, 3-year terms to expire on March 31st, 2022. And I'm just going to go through one by one, and if you want to come up, give us your name, a little bit about you, and if the commissioners have questions, they'll pepper you with questions. First up is Don Nagy.
Hello, everyone. I don't know if you have any questions, but I've been a resident of Macomb County for over 40 years. Got a healthcare background in about 25 years as a CEO and a VP of HR. I've got a son who's a recipient of services in Macomb County. I've been very blessed with the services provided. I also been on the CAC committee for over almost 13 years. I've been chairing it for 12. I've got a great involvement with the county representatives, both from the administrative staff as well as people within this board and some of the people sitting on the Macomb County Mental Health Committee. I've got a vast experience in this environment. I feel I can contribute. I look forward to having the opportunity if offered. If you have any questions, please do so.
Thank you, Don. For the other commissioners, what's the CAC?
Citizens Advisory Council.
Thank you.
We chair that.
Any questions for Don? All right. Thank you very much. Next up is Megan Burke.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Megan Burke. I have lived in Chesterfield, so a resident of Macomb County, for about 3 years now. I am the HR manager for Chesterfield Township, and I've been there for about 2.5 years. As I've been in the community, my interests have kind of developed, and that's what got me interested in the board. Actually, Kathy Vosberg is a elected official in Chesterfield Township, and she suggested that I come to a board meeting. I thought it was really great, and I actually took the mental health first aid that was offered for the youth and adults, and I thought that was really great. So I think that, I'm not a mental health professional, but I am a resident. I am concerned, and I do have a passion for helping. So that's what I bring. I would bring enthusiasm, and I'm excited for the opportunity. Thank you.
Any questions from commissioners? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Next is Linda Bush.
Hello. I'm Linda Bush, and I'm currently serving the Mental Health Board. And I've been on for about 9 years. My interest, actually, I used to be the chair of the Citizens Advisory Council that Don is now, when I worked for the Department of Human Services. And so I was asked if I would just serve out the term of somebody. That was 9 years ago. You know how that goes. And because I came to know that it was a good fit with my experiences, and it really is one of the best experiences that I've had in my life. I worked 31 years for social services, and I did a variety of things. So contracts, ADC caseload, welfare to work programs. I was a trainer. I was a policy coordinator. All of those helped me understand the public system that CMH is. And my other interest is that I don't always share, but I will today, that I have experienced depression and anxiety. Tell I'm nervous. But I had good insurance. I worked for the state of Michigan. I had incredible insurance. And it was back when there was parity at the state, but a lot of people who had insurance didn't have mental health coverage. So I was very blessed to have a way to get treatment. It also helped that I worked for social services, and every third person I knew was a social worker. But so I wanted to be able to serve people who didn't have that advantage in Macomb County. I've over the 9 years that I've been here, I've taken on some leadership roles. I currently am the liaison to the CAC, where I get to have insight. The CAC is comprised of people who receive services, parents, people who are consumers or secondary consumers, and so I get to hear the stories firsthand. I'm also vice chair of the Recipient Rights Committee, where people who have had their rights violated are able to come before us and appeal a decision if it wasn't the decision that they were looking for in terms of their rights complaint. And so there was a move where they wanted to not have us meet, not have us see those. But as I go through my years here, some of the people who came to those meetings at 7:30 in the morning, and all it took to get there and their conditions and their situations, and then tell us their story, those are people who kind of shape how I am able to serve on the board. The other people didn't speak as long as me, so I'll make it a little shorter. And you can ask me questions. Well, I've been here longer, so I have more to say. But oh, I'm also the representative. This is very important. The metro region is Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb, and they elected me to serve on the executive board of the Community Mental Health Association of Michigan. And what that affords me is an ability to hear things on the state level that we might not hear just from serving just in Macomb County. And I get to see how other counties are doing things and compare and contrast. I get to hear about the legislative things that are going on and so forth. So that's really good for my learning experience, and it translates to my experience on the board. So now ask. So I'm asking to be reappointed, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Linda. Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your 9 years of service. For board staff, I'm looking, is your residence in Harrison Township?
Yes.
And the only reason I'm asking, I don't see that on the map.
You don't see Harrison Township?
No, we have a separate,
Oh.
I know where Harrison Township
Mr. Leonetti, you're going to have...
I have two in Chesterfield, but it doesn't show anybody in Harrison Township. So I was just wondering if that's just a typo, or maybe because she's on the board?
I've lived there for 20 years. Mr. Leonetti's
And just so you know, for those that don't know, I asked for a map to go up so we have true
okay.
representation of the entire
Okay.
county, and I don't have concentration of a board in areas where parts of the county aren't being represented equally. And it's nothing against
Okay.
individuals, it's just I feel that diversity of representing the county should be
Sure.
throughout the county.
I do call Phil my rep sometimes because I text him all the time, but it's really Mr.
But if I can ask you, a question, in your 9 years, have you been abreasted from the director of the financial condition of the board, or of the community?
Oh,
mental
sure.
health?
When I first got on the board, we used to, like, in August, be scurrying around because we had money that we didn't want to lapse back to the state. So we'd be finding projects that we always dreamed of that, oh, look at this situation, and try to get the money contracted so that the people could get the services. And then now we go to, first our general fund money was cut by millions of dollars, and then the Medicaid from rebasing cuts. of 40 million. And so, I've seen it. It's a big worry. I was on the executive committee to pick our new executive director. One of the key things we looked at is someone who could address our financial situation. I believe that it costs money, and we have a mandate to serve the populations that we serve. They're some of the most vulnerable people in Macomb County. But I also know that if we don't survive, then we're not serving them. So there is big consideration that the budget is right up there with the people that we serve, too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't see any more. Thank you, Linda. Next up is it Kimberly Cassio? Did I say that correctly? Yes. All right.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Cassio, resident of Macomb County my whole life. Live currently in Clinton Township for 26 years, I believe. I am a mom, and I'm also the legal guardian of my special needs daughter, Kate. And we have been in the Macomb County mental health system for the past little over a year now, I think. So just being involved in the system, I thought that it was really important that I try to be more involved and see if there are things that I can do to make things better. So I don't have all the experience that these other people have brought up, but I just come from it from that aspect of a mom and, things that I see on my month-to-month meetings with my sports coordinator and going through the system and just different problems that I see and things that could be better and maybe ways that we can change things. So that's what I'm here for.
Thank you, Kim. Any questions from commissioners? Chair Smith?
Hi, thank you for coming before us. And I just want to make note of, I found it interesting and humorous, but in a heartening way of how you put your new job. And I appreciate what you put in there about all the things that you do on a daily basis for your daughter. And I just say, we do read these things, and I appreciate that. And it is important to us that what you do for your child does have a relation to how you would act on a board like this. So I just want to say that I thought that was very interesting and very, it really meant a lot. So
Well,
thank you.
I appreciate it.
Any other commissioners with questions or comments? All right. Not seeing any. Thank you, Kim.
All right, thank you.
Next is Ryan Fantuzzi.
My name is Ryan Fantuzzi. I'm a 30-year-plus resident of Macomb County. I grew up in Sterling Heights. I currently reside in Romeo. I practice labor and employment law for Kirk and Huth. I represent mostly public employers, and so one of which is a mental health board in a different community. I first became aware of Macomb County mental health through my nephew, who received services through the Autism Benefit Aid program. My nephew had trouble, sitting for long periods of time and was easily distracted, and so his case manager was able to find services for him, and through some behavioral programs, took him to Myers to help him with shopping, and just a tremendous help that I could see that the Community Health Board has done to my family. I can offer great services to this board, and I look forward to serve. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to help.
Thanks, Ryan. Any questions or comments from commissioners? We're grilling you guys today.
Yeah, thank you.
It's that daylight saving time thing. It's screwing everybody up. Next up is Dana Freers.
Good afternoon. My name is Dana Freers, and I'm a lifelong resident of Macomb County. I'm also an attorney. I run a general practice firm with my dad and my sister. And one of the things I do is I'm on the list of appointed attorneys for the probate court. So I handle mental health cases for the probate court. I'm very passionate about serving my community. I do quite a bit of community work. I'm president of the Roseville Optimist Club. I'm also a Fraser Lion, and I'm involved in many different groups. The two that I think are most relevant to this position are, I'm very involved in a group called Fraser First. They are building the first barrier-free park in Macomb County. I'm very proud of them, very proud of the work we do, and I'm happy to say that we're getting close to finishing the park. I'm also on the board of directors for the Academy of Dreams. It's a special needs school that holds their classes in Roseville. I think that mental health is very important to me, even more so probably the special needs side of it. I think that these are people that need our help probably the most in this county, and I do what I can to try to make their situation better. I think it's very important for everyone to have a place in this world, and I think those are people that a lot of times don't find that place, and so that's why I do the things that I do. And I think that my experiences as an attorney and the work that I've done trying to make things better for those people would be an asset to the board, and I hope that you consider me. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was just a quick question, since you're an attorney and where you live, have you practiced in front of the Honorable Kathy Toko yet?
I have not. I've been in her courtroom, but I have not practiced in front of her yet.
Okay, thank you.
I expect to soon.
I thought you were going to ask where Roseville or Fraser was.
It's not on the map. But
that's next.
Commissioner Hawk can tell us where it is.
Roseville, Fraser, really? Thank you, Chairman. And I will indicate that not only is Dana a member in all of these organizations, she's a very active member. I frankly don't know when you sleep. Most of these clubs and affiliations, we're in them together, and she is not only a member, very active member, so thank you for your application, Dana.
Oh, thank you.
Roseville, Fraser, really?
I know where it's at. I was Commissioner Carabelli.
Any other commissioners with questions or comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And last on the list is Brian Zajac.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Brian Zajac. I have lived in Macomb County for my entire life. I currently reside in Ray Township. I'm a firefighter in the city of Warren, and I also own a crime scene cleanup business. It's interesting with the being a firefighter in the city of Warren, as Mr. Smith can relate, we come into contact with the people that are on the street that don't know how to get the help. And we also see their dependencies as far as alcohol, drug abuse. It comes in many different forms. And there's a lot of times where we make comments or recommend this person for, to have certain assistance, and there is a breakdown in the system where people don't always get that help that they need. And unfortunately, in my other business, I see when the system fails and the ultimate result is catastrophic for most of the families. But I have been concerned about this for quite some time, and I appreciate your consideration. If you have any questions?
Thank you. Any commissioners with questions or comments? Chair Smith.
Thank you. Brian, thanks for putting in your application. I don't have a question for you. This is more of a general comment before we close this, because I think you're the last one. I've been on this board for quite some time, and we've had several occasions to interview people for this position or these positions, because they come up regularly due to the staggered nature of the board. And a lot of times we're struggling to find a good candidate for this position. And I will say that by far, out of all of the times that I've sat here and looked through and listened to people talk, this is a star-studded group, and it's going to be more difficult to figure out who not to vote for in this one than before. Every time we voted, it's always been, well, who do we pick? And not always. There's some good people that have come through, don't get me wrong, but this is going to be a tough decision. I just want to thank all of you for coming and putting your application in and speaking before us, and just to let you know that this is I mean, this is going to be a very difficult decision for all of us, I can tell. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Now, I was going to ask everybody this individually, but you're all here, so do you all meet the qualifications and understand the duties? Nod and smile if you do. Yeah, you think you do now. I thought I did too. But thank you all for coming today. We really appreciate it. And if we have any further questions, commissioners will reach out. And if you have questions of us also, please feel free to reach out to us, to our staff. We'd be happy to answer any questions. It's a challenging position, but it's also very heartwarming, and we've been struggling a little bit, but we're coming back, and it's always nice to help those in need the most. So thank you all for applying. And the vote will be held on Wednesday at full board at 3 o'clock. And you're more than welcome to come back, and you can speak in public comment if you want to. All right, with that, we will close the interviews and move on to department recommendations. And you don't have to stick around if you don't want to. Commissioner Haas says Dana is very busy, so thank you all for coming today. All right, first item is 7A, Information Technology Maintenance Agreements for second quarter. I'll take a motion to approve that. Motion from Commissioner Duge, support from Commissioner Leonetti. Jaco?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Last month I brought to you the maintenance contracts for the first quarter. These are the ones for the second quarter. Like I said last month, we're trying to co-term this with calendar years, but it's not always possible. The three that I have here today, there is another one for this quarter, which is Microsoft, but Microsoft being such a big company will not give us the quote before, or the maintenance agreement before early April. So I'll bring that in in April for the April meeting. I'll bring the Microsoft one to this meeting as well. But those are the only ones for the second quarter of this year.
Thank you, Jaco. Any questions or comments? All right, I don't see any, so we have a motion and support. Go ahead and vote. Everybody's making strange faces at me when I ask if anybody has questions. Motion passes 13-0. Next item is 7B, Budget Amendment, Capital Improvement Fund, Infax Inc., Electronic Docket Display System. I'll take a motion to approve. Motion from Commissioner Romano, support from Commissioner Haw. Jaco?
Infax Docket Call will provide the Circuit Court building a monitor system to direct the public and attorneys to appropriate courtrooms. The system is very similar to when you go to an airport and you want to check your flight times and which gates you departure from. That's pretty much what the system does. This system was approved in, I think, late 2016. The reason it was never executed at that point in time, there was a PO created and everything, and after that was done, the courts decided that it would be, and it made sense, that it would be done on the heels of the downtown renovation project because of all the construction and things that's going to appear, and putting these new television screens on floors and so on. So the decision was made at that point in time. So now that that project's winding down, they are now in a position to start putting in the ones there. We did the same thing in the old county building. So those monitors, if you've probably seen if you walk through those spaces, those monitors are in place in the old county building. But this is just for the court building, the different floors there.
Thank you, Jaco. Any questions from commissioners? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion and support. Please vote.
No.
Motion passes 13-0. Thank you, Jaco. Item C, budget amendment, capital improvement fund 42-1, district court mechanical renovations project. Take a motion to approve. Motion from Commissioner Leonetti, support from Commissioner Lucido. Lynn, you're bright and sunny. Thanks for coming.
This project is for the 42nd District Court, Division 1, which is actually in Romeo. This project consists of replacing 2 rooftop air handling units and also 2 heating hot water boilers. We are also adding a hot water loop, and this would involve a pump, piping, and also putting in a little bit more of the fin tube heating, and also in order to correct a troublesome area where they have been experiencing it was very cold in their lobby area. The air handler regulates and circulates air. The heating hot water boiler provides hot water to the perimeter heating and also to the ceiling reheat coils. The hot water loop is the pump that pushes this hot water through the system. This is essentially, for all intents and purposes, original equipment from 1996. I did have this contained in the capital plan, but it was under 2020. Based on a recent inspection, we felt it was necessary to move this up to 2019. Also, within the last week and a half, we lost the heat exchanger, so we really need to move this up rather than to spend money on repairing the old equipment. The budget amendment, the low bidder or the purchasing department went out for bids on the Mitten site. 838 vendors were notified, 46 vendors viewed the documents, and 6 sealed bids were received and publicly read. The low bidder is Tech Mechanical in the amount of $212,080. The budget amendment looks a little odd because I'm requesting a transfer of $32,080. And that is because the district court has a capital improvement fund, and they indicated that they would contribute towards this project in the amount of $180,000.
We already have a motion in support. Yes, from the other side of the room. Commissioner Carabelli, are you good?
No, but if I can speak to this. Lynn, I got a question for you. I don't remember the purchasing caveat for local companies that we have. Was that taken in
Yes.
place for the one at $218,000, the one at $212,000?
Yes, in this price range, I believe it's a 1%.
Okay, so here.
So it was close.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Okay, when you saw the motion, did we do the motion for the amount of $212,000 by increasing capital improvement fund with a decrease in non-departmental, or did we do the transfer of operational general funds for $32,080? I know Steve.
Point of information, my motion.
Sorry?
Yeah, my motion was for item C only. I mean, from my understanding of it, so.
They put it all together. I was wondering.
The motion was just for C, the 32,000 right now.
Okay. So their recommended motion, their recommended broke it out. Our recommendation didn't, right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
No.
If you guys look at the recommendation sheet, the motion that is recommended is for $212,080. The recommended action by the department is for $32,080. Do you see, will you speak to that?
Yeah, I talked to Steve on it. Let me see how I have this worded.
He was actually supposed to get back to me on how exactly he wanted to do it, but he did say that the 180 was going to be moved. He wasn't sure if they should move it, he wants to move it all over, I think, at the same time for it, but 180 of this 212 will come from the district court.
Okay, so your recommended motion is no longer,
No,
okay. All right, that's all I needed to know.
Yeah, that's right.
The second one, the 32,000.
Commissioner Leonetti.
Yeah, I kind of had questions along the same line. Thank you, by the way, Mr. Chair. So 180,000 is going to come out of a 42-1 District Court Improvement Fund.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then the other 32,000, that would get us up to 212, that's going to come out of the general fund. Is that my understanding? Or capital improvement fund? Okay. All right. Do we want me to amend my motion to state that so it's clear? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll do that. I'll to the extent I'll amend my motion so that it's understood that we're going to take $180,000 from a line item of the 42-1 District Court Improvement Fund, and then we're going to take from the capital fund from the county the other remaining 32,000, whatever dollars it is here, $80.
And then, you okay? Okay. So we're okay with that. Okay. Any other commissioners with questions or comments?
Just if it's a problem, let us know by Wednesday.
All right. Please vote. Motion passes 13-0. All right, so now we're moving on to item D, the purchase order for Tech Mechanical, Inc., 42-1 District Court Mechanical Renovations Project, $212,080. Motion from Commissioner Leonetti, support from Commissioner Duje. Any questions or comments for Lynn? She just tied everything together last time. All right, seeing none, please vote. Motion passes 13-0. All right, next item is 7E, Purchase Republic Services Waste Disposal Services, $45,192.
The purchasing department solicited bids for waste disposal. They put it out on the Minton site. 338 vendors were notified of this particular solicitation. 23 vendors viewed the documents. 5 bids were received. We're recommending the low bidder, Republic Services, in the amount of $45,192. Funds for this are actually contained in the Facilities and Operations Building Operating Budget.
Any questions or comments? We got a motion. Yep. All right, commissioners, please vote.
Apparently I haven't come back from Washington.
Daylight savings.
Motion passes 13-0. 12-0, sorry. My screen was still blank. Next is 7F, Purchase Ultimate Lawn Service Lawn and Landscape Maintenance for $112,650. I'll take a motion to approve. Motion from Commissioner Leonetti, support from Commissioner Myjack.
The purchasing department solicited bids on the Minton site. 212 vendors were notified. 36 viewed the documents and 5 sealed bids were received. We are recommending that the lawn and landscape portion of the bid be awarded to Ultimate Lawn Service in the amount of $112,650. Funds for this is also contained in the Facilities and Operations Building Operating Budget.
Thank you, Lynn. Commissioner Ha?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lynn, I don't know if this question goes to you or to the chairman, but I thought I saw lawn and landscape services on the Public Service Committee and the Roads Committee. are these all one and the same, and by economics of scale, I see we're breaking them up in separate budgets. Wouldn't it be better to bid it out in its entirety versus, if we are, in fact, dividing it amongst different firms? I don't know that this is a different firm, but I do remember seeing this 2 or 3 other times.
I'm
Do you
not
know?
sure what public services, I don't know if that's cleaning of drains, I'm not sure what that project is. Ours is obviously cutting grass and trimming bushes and weeding and fertilization.
Yeah, my concern is, are we getting the best bang for the buck if we're sending it out to 3 and 4 different firms versus having, and maybe one company can handle it all, I don't know. But maybe for future reference to the chair, that's something we could look at, so thank you.
We certainly can look at that in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Leonetti.
Hi. Have we used this particular vendor before?
Yes, we have.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we have a motion and support. Please vote. Motion passes 13-0. Thanks, Lynn. All right, next is item 7G, the creation of IT capital outlay purchases work group. You want to take a motion, or should I discuss it first? Well, I guess I'll take a motion to approve. Motion from Commissioner Romano, support from Commissioner Drollet. All right, little background on this. This kind of came about over the weekend from a discussion between Crystal and myself, Jaco, and Deputy Executive Delden about purchases for the IT department, and trying to create some policies to make life a little bit easier on Jaco, make it streamlined a little bit for this body, so that Jaco's not coming to us for every $5 mouse he purchases from HP after buying $35,000 worth of computers. But so we have some sort of idea of, approval of those purchases, I guess. So it's not, he doesn't have the $5 thing where he's coming to us all the time, but he also doesn't have an open checkbook to where he's just spending without us seeing everything until after it's done. So Crystal and I talked, and I spoke to Jaco beforehand about doing a work group with this. Jaco was in agreement to having a work group because we would like to have something in place to where we don't have to deal with this all the time. So every time you need something, you're not coming to us for, like I said, a $5 mouse. So if anybody has any questions or comments on this, I'd be happy to take them. Crystal can help too, because she's been a part of this since the beginning. And this is all kind of stemmed from last year too, of going back and forth trying to create a policy, and a policy never was created. So to make life a little bit easier for me chairing this committee and Jaco, who's in the field, I thought we could work together to come up with some sort of guidelines on that. Chair Smith.
Thank you, Chair. So, a couple things. We've realized that this has been some kind of a problem for a few years. When we did the whole capital project change where we put it into an item or a budget source that they had to actually come to us for the request for these, it did present these problems. The executive's office, and in particular Mark Delden, several times has mentioned that this is a big problem, and I will say that at least 10 times, and mostly at meetings, public meetings, or meetings with Commissioner Carabelli and Commissioner Kleinfeld that we've had with them, I have said, please come to us with your proposed suggestion on how best to deal with this. It's a problem that you and your departments are seeing, but I don't think it's up to us to figure out what that problem is and how to solve it. So please come to us with a proposed solution, and we'll be happy to look at it and address it. But it would be harder for us to come up with something and hand it to you and say, yes or no, this works. So I'll tell you that it's been over a year I have asked for for finance, the executive's office, I don't believe Jayco's necessarily been a part of these, so I'll leave you out of this part. But for them to come to us with a proposed fix to these problems, where we run into, ongoing purchases that we know at the beginning of the year are going to happen, those type of things. So that, we have requested this a bunch of times, so now we're just taking a step farther, and I appreciate you getting involved, Commissioner, with starting a work group, because maybe that's the way to get this input from everybody so that we can devise a plan that makes sense, both for our needs and for all the department's needs, because I think there is a way to do this, right? Secondly, I think Crystal should explain the conversation that she had with Jayco before the letter was written to Mark Delden, explaining how this board is holding you up from doing a bunch of things, when Crystal clearly had the conversation, and I read the email, that we are going to put together this committee. She clearly asked if there was anything on the agenda that we were going to remove, that Commissioner Kraft removed, that was going to be held up until we came up with a solution. You said no. And then Saturday morning, I believe everybody got an email from Executive Delden on how, we're holding up progress in the county, basically. I mean, to shorten a big letter. So I would like you to explain, because certain relevant parts of your conversation prior to this whole thing starting have been left out of this. And I want to make sure that all the board members realize that this was explained fully, that we were going to take this extra step and try to solve this problem before this whole email chain started and got to Executive Delden and then to us. So Crystal, if you don't mind, give us a kind of a brief rundown of the time frame of this.
Okay. Well, I feel like you kind of explained it, but
Okay. Well, I didn't want to miss anything.
I know. So I don't know if anyone had questions beyond that, but we did receive an agenda item that was just for capital outlay purchases from the IT department. So that was where it started, and it didn't name any specific purchases. It just had the budgets that he had itemized for his purchases, and a bunch of attachments with invoices and quotes. So that's when I started looking at it to try to determine what specifically they were asking to purchase. And I gathered from my conversation with Jayco that they thought they were asking for approval to purchase any of their capital items and just send that request through with the board just approving it like that. So I know that, as Bob just explained, it was left from last year where we didn't really have a process in place because we were kind of waiting for them to come back to us with that. So I knew that was an issue that needed to be resolved. So that's when Commissioner Kraft recommended the work group. So I did send that to Jayco, that we did pull that request off the agenda because there wasn't a specific request there other than just approval of
A lump sum of money, I believe.
Yeah, his budget. And so we have a timeline set for a work group where we should have a recommendation back to the board for internal services in April and then going to full board in April.
Right. So just, and I just want to follow up that. That conversation was had before all of these emails came back from us, that we were going to work on this, that there was nothing being held up, that this was just a request for a lump sum of money, and none of it really tied into all of the things. There wasn't a correlating number between everything.
No, that's when I called.
And that's what we used to do before.
Right, so I called because I thought maybe that's what the invoices were, and then I thought maybe they all added up to the budget amounts, and it didn't, because I was just looking for something easy for you guys to review for approval.
Right.
So, and then I did ask Jayco if you have anything you need approved next week. Commissioner Kraft is willing to still add that to the agenda for specific purchases. We don't want to hold anything up. We have the bypass procedure available during the next month until we work these out. So I think the email you all received from the executive's office made it sound like we just pulled his items off the agenda and that we were stopping all of their workflow and projects, and there were solutions offered, and that's what I just wanted you all to know. We weren't just pulling things off and not offering solutions.
So, and this is my point to all of you who might have read that and thought that mean Commissioner Kraft was, not entertaining anything coming from the IT department. I want you to understand that we have offered for a year, please come to us and help us figure out what would be best. And Commissioner Kraft had already set this work group in motion to be with an end date to have a solution for this. So I know that a lot of times communication gets a little skewed when it's doled out in little pieces without the whole story. So I thought we should at least know the whole story of this issue. Thank you.
Commissioner Jacob, go ahead.
Comment on
Yes,
this,
absolutely.
please? I do want to say that I respectfully disagree to a point that information is not provided about what's being purchased. The one thing I can clearly tell you is every single department, the quotes, the contracts, and everything is provided for the pieces that I'm going to purchase for the rest of the year for every department. It is, I don't know how I would bring that differently to the board if it's actually at the point of purchasing the equipment. What we do with HP, because we buy off of a Ramsey contract, is we order the equipment and they give it to us at the price that was provided. And the number of computers we purchase is the number of computers that's provided in the list by department for every computer, as well as the cost of each computer. So when it comes to PC replacement, I believe it is all that information has been provided in what we want to purchase for the rest of the year. When I bring that in front of the board, I don't know how that's going to look different at the time that I provide that information.
I remember, if you don't mind, us talking about moving some of those, bless you, some of those every year purchases into internal services in your department. And I don't know if Steve should be here to talk about how that would work.
And that is where it is. And that was this specific request.
Right.
Is for that budget. It's not for my whole capital budget. All the project items, projects that we do, that is handled the way we always handle those projects. In other words, anything above $35,000 we bring to the board for approval as separate entities.
Right.
So it doesn't contain those items. It is items that we use or purchase on a regular basis throughout the year.
So two things to that. I understand that. One of them, though, is whatever you gave to Crystal, which was, a lot, didn't match up with the number. And she called, I'm sorry, what's the lady's name?
Well, I called Shannon, but there wasn't a request that said we want to purchase these PCs for this price. There wasn't anything spelled out like that. There was just attachments of invoices and quotes. So that's why when I called Shannon, I thought she could probably put a spreadsheet together that would show what all the attachments were, and that's what you were actually asking to purchase. But maybe that's where the communication breakdown was, but she said, no, that's not exactly what we're purchasing. And,
Well, I would, communication like that.
okay, yeah.
I would prefer that comes directly to me, because I feel that I've provided all that information.
Well, and there wasn't a specific request. It was just purchases of capital outlay budget line items, and then there were 22 attachments. So I started opening them to try to determine what the purchases was, but there wasn't anything spelled out. So that's what we are missing. That's what else the board would need to see, not
Okay.
just, yeah, so.
Crystal,
yeah.
this is what, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that we have a solution planned, and that was to kind of fix this issue like this, and it was already stated that we were going to do a work group to kind of figure this out, make sure you didn't need anything for this week that was going to get lost, and we were going to figure it out to make it so that you knew what to put in, and we knew what we were approving, and that's the biggest thing, right? You knew how to put it in. We knew that what you put in and what we're reading is what we're approving, and that's all we're trying to get to here. But I thought that was discussed, that this was in the process being happening, which is what this motion is right now, to get this work group together to settle this issue so we don't have this problem.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you. I just want to clarify a couple of things. It's very clear that the meeting that we had a year ago, there's differing opinions as to what was said in that meeting. Based on Deldon's email, your communication with him, and Crystal's email. We absolutely talked about moving the everyday stuff out of capital outlay, but I want to clarify something, because this is really important. That doesn't mean that the things that are in the regular budget don't require approval. There seems to be this thought that if we move it out of capital outlay and it goes yearly into the regular budget, there's no longer a need for approval on it. So I wanted to clarify that. There was a reference made to the vehicles out of the sheriff's department. And Commissioner Leonetti and I had a disagreement on this because he had said at the table that, yes, they could just provide a list of all the vehicles for the year, and they were good to go. And after the meeting, I said to him, no, that's not how we purchase them. If they purchase 35, we should be approving that 35 from that particular vendor. If they're taking these out to bid or not taking them out to bid. Having said that, I do understand the issue with once you've hit the 35,000 mark, you're kind of shut down on a whole lot of things. And I want there to be a system to work that out. I don't know if that system is not approving purchases as expensive as computers. Because it sounds to me what you actually want to do is get this large number in the budget, and then those purchases you never have to come back. And I don't know if the committee will decide to do that. I'm very happy that there's going to be a committee, but you indicated we need to tape, have a tape of the meeting. Okay, well, if the committee wants to make motions and vote on those motions, that's fine if that's where we are. But I have a question. Who's in I didn't see anything in the paperwork regarding the work group. Who's in the work group? I'm not in the work group. I'm just letting you know.
No, I left that open because I wasn't sure who'd want to join. So we do have to name membership.
Yeah, and I just want to, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I also want to, this is obviously something I need to discuss with my boss, Mr. Dalden, will make the decisions of who will be in that work group of,
on your side.
Executive office or exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I was just wondering, with respect to this body, who's in the work group, because we're getting ready to vote on it, and there hasn't been a discussion on that. Okay.
We can have that discussion if you want. After Commissioner Romano's next up.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Jaco.
Hi, Commissioner.
You got a smile out of you. That's a good start. I just, how do I put this? What's in the past is past. We're going to have a work group. We want to make it easier for you. And the threshold that we were talking about, 35,000, I think possibly with the work group, and I say this kindly, we depend on Crystal, and that's where for us, that's where the buck stops. And when Crystal is not completely comfortable with what's being done on paper, she'll notify us accordingly. And we want her to. And I understand where you're coming from, but I think that conversation, and I say it respectfully again with Deputy Delvin, should have been directed more at Crystal. But what's done is done. Don't start off, we got a whole year in front of us yet. Let's do it the right way. We've got this board coming up, it'll make it easier for you, and that's what we want to do. I think Commissioner Carabelli brought it up once when he said, you start talking IT, you're talking Chinese to me because they don't understand. You could probably come up with line item dollar amounts, probably within 80% of what it should cost just off the top of your head. I don't know that. And I don't know if any of the other commissioners know the cost. So when it comes to that, and we depend on Crystal to come up with those numbers, we appreciate the fact that she does. I appreciate where you come from too, because you know those numbers ahead of time. That's in that budget, but sometimes, and last year was a good point, you came to us for money above and beyond what your budget was for, and understand that too. Emergencies happen. But I like the idea of this committee being formed. I think it'll shortcut a lot of things for you and also for us, because we don't have to start asking questions that we don't even know what the hell the answers are for. So I'm in total favor of this work group, and I think it'll work out good. But I just want to say, Crystal, we depend on you for doing it. Don't stop. Thank you. So
Thank you, Commissioner. And just to follow up on Commissioner Kleinfeld's question of who would be involved, we had mentioned the IT department, finance department, county executive, and commissioners and our office, just to kickstart it. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad Commissioner Kleinfeld brought up the automobile because I thought the situation was quite analogous. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Jaco here told us that every year we're going to be replacing computers, and I think we came up with an annual amount. So when you were telling us a few moments ago, this is the amount that I have for the beginning of the year, was that based on that amount that we determined? Because I think you phase out computers.
It's 220,000, and it was listed per department
right
for every computer that I'm going to buy The totals are in there.
That's something for the work group to be aware of, because I remember we had this discussion with him, and he told us every year you can expect to have 220, and we were going to put it into the internal service part instead of the capital outlay portion of it. So, and I did think it was analogous to the vehicles, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to say the suggestion would be, the sheriff told us how many vehicles he's going to have. Vehicles are a little bit different than all those computers. You're buying many more computers than vehicles, but I think that's something the work group should look at, and that doesn't necessarily mean I'll be part of the work group, but just a suggestion. Thank you.
You don't have to be part of the work group to shoot us suggestions, Commissioner. All right, I don't see any questions or comments, but I'd like to ask commissioners who would like to be involved in this work group. And as you can see from the conversation the last 10, 15 minutes, this work group may not be a terrible idea. Commissioner Brown? Commissioner Carabelli? Commissioner Duge? Commissioner Kleinfeld's going to Skype in from the mountains. Next Monday is, okay, Carabelli's out. Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Duge, anybody else? And Chair Smith. All right, sounds good. We have a motion and support for the work group. Thank you, Jaco, for working with me on this. I appreciate it. We'll make it smoother for all of us, okay? Motion passes 13-0. Thank you, Commissioners. Next is item 8, correspondence, AAA 1B Macomb County Listening Session, Tuesday, March 19th, 1:30 to 3 at the BOC. I'll take a motion to approve the correspondence, receive and file. Motion from Commissioner Leonetti, support from Commissioner Lucido. Please vote. Motion passes 13-0. Next is new business. I think Chair Smith has a few things. If you want to go first, or okay. Okay. Any other commissioners with new business? Chair Smith.
I was kind of hoping. I got back off my cruise and got right back into business with some text messages on the weekend. And I just want to point out a few of them, and maybe Commissioner Leonetti can help me speak to this. But last weekend, some subpoenas for to be deposed for the lawsuit that the executive has against the board were sent out. And last week was the cutoff to preserve your right to depose the other side. And in those depositions was all of the executive's office, Al, Mark Delden, and Mark Hackle, were subpoenaed for deposition. The deposition says on a certain date. Right after it, it says, or any date that we can agree on that everybody's available. So it was not a certain date. Some of you know about this and some of you don't. So, and what happens in a lawsuit is that when you sue someone, normally you're going to get deposed because you want to make sure that you have the right information beforehand, and that information that you provide actually is the same information you would provide in court. What it does not mean is that you are going to be deposed. It just preserves the right in case our attorney feels that there's a need to ask you certain questions, that you're able to do that by a certain date. You have to do that. All of those people that I just spoke to about were on the witness list for months. So this is not a surprise to anybody. I just wanted to point that out, that a subpoena to be deposed is not a deposition certain. It just preserves the right to depose that person. Now, whether we do or not is another question. I'm not really sure where that comes from, but that's what we have an attorney for. Any questions on that, I'd be happy to ask or answer, or maybe Commissioner Leonetti would have a little better answer.
Commissioner Ha?
Thank you, Chair. I do have a question. I don't know if I pose it to you, Chairman, or Commissioner Leonetti.
Oh.
There was 3 or 4 of us talking about this, and the question surfaced, who gives the attorney, our attorney, I'm assuming that's Webster?
Correct.
Got that right? The direction or authority to go ahead and issue these types of documents, and who does he report to? Procedurally, maybe you guys know the answer, but the four of us talking over there, and even Crystal, nobody seemed to know the answer to that.
And Bob, I can answer one part of it.
Hey, go ahead.
Yeah.
Proceed.
Yeah, Commissioner, in terms of the issuance of the subpoena, my guess that would be the attorney doing it, not necessarily from the direction of the chair, if that's the person who's been talking to him, but it's something that's done as an attorney tactic. In every case, you get a court scheduling order, and in that court scheduling order, it'll say you have so much time to complete discovery. Okay, and then so my understanding in this particular case, the discovery cutoff date was sometime last week. And discovery are things like issuing interrogatories, issuing deposition notices, setting up field investigations. And so it's very common in any kind of lawsuit that attorneys can procrastinate, okay? Right? I'm not saying our attorney procrastinated in this case, but that as you get closer to that discovery cutoff date, in order to preserve your right to still maybe take a deposition of this person or maybe go out and do a field investigation of a site, that you notice it up and file with the court a subpoena for a notice of deposition, and you do it before that cutoff date or sometimes on that cutoff date. Because if you don't do it and that cutoff date passes, then you could have great difficulty if you need to later get that information in the course of discovery. So I think to answer the first part of your question, I think our attorney, acting in his capacity as a professional attorney in the middle of a litigation, went ahead and issued these things so he could preserve his right in that litigation to depose these individuals if necessary. That part I can answer. As far as who gives them overall direction, I'll defer to the chair on that.
Okay, so he's correct. And in that to me isn't an overall direction thing. The overall direction thing would come down to the point that if we decided that we actually did have to depose these people, any one of these gentlemen or any other people on the witness list, that would be a decision that we would make. Right now, I mean, I direct him in the fact that we are being sued. You are defending us. Defend us. I'm not, I'm an attorney, but not to the extent that he is. I mean, Rob does different types of work. I mean, I would ask, him. But when it comes down to big decisions like that, we would probably have a closed session to discuss strategy for the next part of the upcoming suit. Providing a holding place so that we can depose someone if we need to is strictly an attorney tactic in a lawsuit that we did not start. So you want to make sure that you preserve all of your rights in order to win the lawsuit. I mean, we're not in this to listen, we're always talking to try to figure out how we can do it without the court having to direct it. But in the case that doesn't happen, you can't lose your rights to certain things in a lawsuit.
And thank you, and I appreciate that. I'm talking procedurally, and I know it's specific to this because that's where it was raised, but there seemed to be some commissioners that knew this was taking place and some that didn't.
I don't think there's any commissioners that knew this was taking place, including me last week. I didn't know that.
You're excluded. You were on Disney Cruise.
But even coming up to it, all I know is that there are dead certain dates that our attorney has to get certain things in by. That would be like me saying, well, get our discovery to them by a certain date. He knows he has to do that. There are certain things that are pretty much automatic and routine in these cases to preserve your rights, to follow the rules for the other side, for providing information. All of that is what's in the standard, go do what you have to do. Now, other strategies would certainly be before us in closed session as to who we question, who we depose. That will be coming up.
Okay. That's what I'm looking for.
Yes. No, this is not direct. All the strategy on that is not a single 2 or 3 or 4-person direction. This will be in front of the board on what we do going forward.
I know being in the political arena, this statement really is not applicable, but I hate surprises. And that just seemed to be like a surprise to me.
Well, you know what, so do courts. Courts and lawyers hate surprises too. This is a procedurally tactical thing that the attorney did. Had nothing to do with overall strategy at all. Not one bit of overall strategy. It could very well be that you don't take the deposition of these individuals, but as Bob said, And as the attorney did, it's done to just preserve that right in case we have to. Hopefully we don't have to take their depositions, but you do it all the time. I'll give you an example. I had a car accident case. I didn't necessarily have to depose the other driver. He was clearly at fault, but just to be safe, I put him on a deposition list just before the cutoff date in case I had to. I never had to, and we were fine, but you just do it to protect yourself. So it's a completely procedural decision made on the attorney's part as part of his job.
I don't know if I told you, Rob, I have a son who has a law degree.
Oh, good. Well, then he knows. Then good. All right, gotcha.
Are you lawyers done talking now? All right. Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. I want to make clear that I'm not objecting to the subpoenas. I guess my next question is, how many subpoenas were issued? I'll go through the chair, if I may.
I can tell you 3 of them because those are the ones that their attorney wrote back to us about. But the witness list is anybody who had anything to do with, it probably would I would guess that anything, any discussions that the attorneys have had with maybe Rhonda Powell, I'm not really sure, but she's the Office of Senior Services. The people that might have some input, some knowledge of why, what's going on in the lawsuit. And the witness list, I will tell you, the witness list has been out in public for months.
Okay.
And it's nobody that hasn't been on that list for months. And this date has been, this date did not just come up. This date on last week, whenever the deadline was, has been in the records for, Rob, I don't know, at least a couple months, I would imagine, in a general lawsuit. It's all public.
That answered my second question. So it's been around for a few months. And as Commissioner Hall said, and I totally in agreement with him, I don't give surprises. I don't like surprises. I don't want to have to hear over the weekend, that our executive was subpoenaed. Well, what do you mean he was subpoenaed? Well, there's 3 or 4 or 5 of them out there. Now, what does that make us look like when somebody says to me, well, didn't it come to the commissioners? It's your attorney. And I say it respectfully to Commissioner Leonetti, if he's my attorney and he sends out a subpoena, I darn well better know about it. Now, these subpoenas were sent out by Mr. Webster, our attorney, and I think we should have been notified for, and he had a long time to do it. All of a sudden, it's going to be this weekend we're going to send out, or this Friday we're going to send out subpoenas? At the direction of whom? You were gone, Mr. Smith. I can't look at you, Commissioner Smith. So did anybody else that Mr. Webster talked to say, hey, I'm issuing subpoenas? And I'd like to see a raise of hands if anybody was notified. Well, I don't see any hands raised.
Right.
I think this was done incorrectly. That's my personal opinion on it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you. First of all, I don't think we're going to settle this thing today because I didn't think Commissioner Hall was specifically speaking to subpoenas. I think he was generally speaking. For instance, our attorney works on a day-to-day basis creating ordinances for us that most of us don't participate in until they're in the packet. I personally think that we use them too much. I would like in some of the more mundane tasks to use corp counsel. We tend to use our own attorney for everything. And I think in the areas where we have to protect ourselves, that's important. But in every area, I don't know. And with respect to whose direction, just an example. So when I put it on the agenda to hire UHY, a resolution wasn't in my head. Just like everybody else, I was just picturing that blue stripe that says move to and da-da-da-da-da-da, UHY. But Pete started working on a resolution, and the resolution, as you all remember, was a page long, and it talked about this, that, and the other. I'd never had the conversation about creating a resolution with him prior to that. That's what I was talking about. I know that when Commissioner Carabelli and I met with him, he indicated that that's what he was doing. But generally speaking, I believe, not on that situation, but generally speaking, I believe that it is our chair that interacts on a daily basis and makes decisions on a daily basis with regard to our attorney. So for clarification, now how people feel about that, that may be for a discussion for a later day, but would you agree that that's generally how we do it right now and have as long as I've been here?
I would agree.
Okay.
On a daily basis, meaning when
Yes.
those things occur, because it's certainly very far from daily, except for more recently in the last couple of weeks, and that's, you and Jim have had the daily on that with all of that. But yes, he deals through me on a lot of
Yeah.
these. But now, when it comes down to everything he does as an attorney that he's supposed to do as an attorney, he doesn't notify me every day, and that's something that we'll talk about, because, like I said, we let him, when we have a case, there are certain things that you have to do. Now, notifying us that it might be coming, I mean, I guess sometimes you get caught up in the, I know it's coming, right? Because I do it. You expect that everybody kind of realizes that that's coming in a lawsuit. So we'll address that for sure.
And you guys, I had no idea what y'all were talking about, so I wasn't part of that discussion. That's all. Oh, and I'm going to get my other thing out real quick. Okay, so the speakers at NACO were Kellyanne Conway, Ben Carson, it's kind of painful for me, but Marco Rubio and the labor secretary, and they all love counties, and we make the world go around, and they're always thinking about counties, and that's why we were invited to the White House, and counties are number one, basically, and I think that gives a report of what everybody talked about. Thank you.
And Phil, just to finish, since, Don, if you wouldn't mind, on maybe Wednesday, give us a little report on New York, on the pension conference. That'd be great. I don't want to put you on the spot now, so thanks.
Commissioner Sauger.
Yeah, see, Commissioner Leonetti's in a different spot. When you have a court case or a big lawsuit, you can open up the books and invite anybody or suggest anybody be subpoenaed or come for a deposition. We have a county here. We pay the bill. But if this guy goes out and does all these invitees and gets the stuff, we know nothing about it, it's going to cost us a lot of money. So that's different than your position. So that's why we need this guy, our attorney, to come before us and say who he's going to be involved with or what it's going to cost. Because right now, all we are doing is paying the money out. Thank you.
Commissioner Hahn in the second round.
Thank you. I just want to apologize, Chairman, for dipping into this subject under the Internal Service Committee meeting, but thank you for the opportunity.
And I just want to mention really briefly that my Anchor Bay Tars went to the playoffs in basketball for the first time since the early 90s and got beat by Commissioner Hawes' Roseville Panthers. So I'm glad we didn't. I'm glad we didn't place any bets on that one. But all right, seeing no new business, we'll move on to public participation. Anybody from the public wishing to speak? Give us your name and address. Joan, you have 5 minutes, no more.
You're threatening me. Joan Flynn, 13810 Trafalgar. And I'll tell you, I really miss being up here. Chuckle. Anyway, thank you all for voting for me to be a trustee, even if you didn't vote for me. I received votes. I'm a trustee, been on there for 2 months now. And I debated who's more important, commissioners or a trustee, title-wise. And it's the commissioners, because you have the whole county. Trustee only has the community colleges. So keep up the good work. Thanks for your support. And bless you all.
Thank you, Joan. Anyone else for public participation? Going once, going twice. We will close public participation. Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Commissioner Duche, support from Commissioner Drollet. Please vote.
Public services will start in a couple minutes.
I don't need to abstain.
Please vote. You can abstain, I guess. We are adjourned. Thank you.
We are all here. Well, I got more people than you guys do. You never know, man.